Recently, I had an opportunity to visit the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. We even have a Colorado playlist that will pop up in the top corner of your screen later in this video. Imagine that. While in Colorado, we were able to experience the Rocky Mountains around Estes Park, and we're taking you along for the ride. And by the way, welcome to Vlogmas 2020, Episode 1. In case you're not familiar with YouTube lingo, Vlogmas is a yearly tradition in which vloggers of the YouTube community gear up for Christmas by posting a video each day of December all the way to Christmas Day. It's also time to answer any of your questions about our videos during our Vlogmas live streams. I'm inviting you into our living room for some conversation, through the computer of course. I guess you could say that Vlogmas videos are more informal and down-to-earth, like this video, even though most of our videos are pretty down-to-earth already, but you get the point. Naturally, this is a different kind of Christmas season, but don't forget, the reason for the season hasn't changed at all. Maybe this video will help get you in the mood to get that Christmas tree going and hang a light or two. And maybe this year, we have to hang the stockings 6 feet apart. I haven't read the regulations just yet. Regardless, hang out with us this December for some fun conversation, and it starts by leaving a comment. In case you haven't noticed, I respond to almost every comment, so let's get this party started. We begin on the front range of the Rockies, enjoying the amazing view of Long's Peak. At 14,259 feet of elevation, it's Rocky Mountain National Park's only 14er.
Of all the YouTube videos I've made, which is about 300 now, I think, this is the coldest I've ever been on a video shoot. So most of this video is going to be voiceover because, well, I simply can't take the cold. It's 25 degrees, 24 degrees right now, but the wind chill is like so much below zero. It's just bone-chilling cold, but absolutely beautiful.
A lot of this video was recorded around Estes Park, headquarters of Rocky Mountain National Park. Now here's the thing, the Rocky Mountains are enormous, and they're definitely not contained in this one national park. This mountain chain stretches 3,000 miles from British Columbia and Alberta, Canada, through Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and down to New Mexico in the U.S. The width of the Rockies vary from 70 miles to 300 miles. Now, most of our videos are back east in the Appalachian Mountains. And it's not fair to compare the two mountain chains because it's like comparing apples to pineapples. Simply stated, it's just different. There are 4 national parks in the Rockies: Mesa Verde, Grand Sand Dunes, Black Canyon of the Gunnison, and Rocky Mountain National Park. Like I said earlier, most of this video is in Rocky Mountain National Park. I'm planning a 10 crazy fact video about the Rocky Mountains, but I'm having to spend a lot of extra time paying attention to the little details that are easy to miss. Let me explain what I'm saying, and it's kind of what this video is all about. Pikes Peak is in the Rocky Mountains, and it's the most visited mountain in the U.S. and the second most visited mountain in the world. But it's not a national park. I mean, really? Garden of the Gods is a city park, like Central Park in New York. There's the tab I mentioned earlier that includes a video about Garden of the Gods, and in that video I explain how and why Garden of the Gods is a city park. It's a really interesting story, but kind of confusing if you're trying to make a facts video. I don't know if you noticed, but my voiceover about Long's Peak didn't match this sign. I'm not sure what it says about you if you did notice, but that's for another video on another channel. This is why the Rocky Mountains are so confusing. They, whoever they are, can't seem to get their facts straight. This sign says this, and federal signs are supposed to be factual, right? But maybe signs are more like opinions in the Rockies, I don't know. But this sign doesn't match other sources. Seriously, while doing research for the other 3 videos I've made for the Colorado playlist, I've noticed some conflicting information. Credible sources will say something like Mount Bob is 14,400 feet, but another credible source will say that Mount Bob is 14,398 feet. And occasionally, the facts provided by all sources are kind of misleading. I'm not saying it's intentionally misleading, but then again, I don't know. Being from back east where the mountains are under 7,000 feet, it's an absolute fact that Great Smoky Mountain National Park is the most visited national park in the U.S. with 11 million visitors annually. But it doesn't hurt that it's within a 10 to 12 hour drive from almost all of the major cities in the Northeast northeast part of the country. Not to mention that the population of the cities in the southeast, close to the Smokies, well, they're still booming. Great Smoky Mountain National Park doesn't have a lot of competition when it comes to what they have to offer, including decent weather and accessibility. It's one of those you can get there from here kind of places. But way back in the day, the which mountain is higher argument was pretty heated in the region. For example, Elisha Mitchell contended that the peak by the name of Black Dome, now known as Mount Mitchell, was the highest mountain in the Appalachian Mountains. Thomas Klingman asserted that Smoky Dome was the true highest peak. One mountain was in North Carolina, the other in Tennessee. This was a pretty heated debate, and Mitchell ended up being right. Mount Mitchell is recognized as the highest peak in the Appalachian Mountains. Klingman was wrong, but websites about Klingman's Dome, or Thomas Klingman, tell a story in which Klingman was right. They'll tell you that Klingman won the argument that Smoky Dome, now known as Klingman's Dome, was higher than any mountain in New England.
What?
I guess that was a thing? Klingman's Dome isn't in New England, it's in Tennessee, and I'm not sure why that's a big shocker that it's bigger than mountains in New England. Klingman's Dome is the highest point in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and it's also the highest peak in Tennessee, but that's not the issue Mitchell and Klingman were debating at the time, and it was a pretty big debate.
Who cares?
Look, I know it seems like I'm going a long way around the point to make my point, but are you ready for this? If you visit the Smokies a lot, it's common knowledge that Klingman's Dome is the highest point in Tennessee. People visiting Gatlinburg will head over to Klingman's Dome for a half day and maybe follow it up with a loop around Cades Cove. It's a wonderful drive around the mountains. And if you've never done that, I recommend it. But Klingman's Dome is in Tennessee, right? It says it right here on both of these somewhat credible, most of the time websites. But watch what happens when I enter Klingman's Dome into Google Earth, and it's the same way with Google Maps. Klingman's Dome in North Carolina? Well, there's actually an explanation for this, but I'm saving that for a video this coming spring. Here's my point. Let's say I wasn't from that region, and I was trying to make a video or do a report about Klingman's Dome. If I was just glancing at information, I would assume that Klingman's Dome is in Tennessee. The end. And that's fine for a video until 15 people from North Carolina light me up in the comments. Okay, by now I'm sure you're asking, what does this have to do with Colorado? Well, in the Rockies, it's the same kind of thing, but the Rockies are so much bigger and there's a lot more information. With 4 national parks and city parks and state parks and this and that, well, it comes down to the same kind of thing. And a lot of it comes down to marketing. Mix in some human error and yes, maybe an honest disagreement or two between experts about what's what and how high is this compared to that, and you're going to get conflicting information or clever wording about the biggest and best sight to see. So you really have to pay attention and not make assumptions. And honestly, I see this all the time when making videos. Someone knowledgeable on a subject will watch one of our videos and leave a comment correcting information, not realizing that there's a debate on that topic and I simply chose a side, or I'm providing the most recent explanation and so on. It's no big deal. Then again, sometimes I simply get the information wrong and there's that. Whatever the case, I'm always thankful when people leave a comment. So if you're a Colorado or Rocky Mountains expert, or if you don't call yourself an expert but you're from Colorado, give us a piece of your mind on the subject, or any subject for that matter. Any subject except math. No math, unless the math is easy. The highest mountain in Rocky Mountain National Park is Long's Peak, sitting at 14,259 feet. It's the 14th highest peak in Colorado and one of the more difficult ones to summit. Did you catch that? It's the highest peak in Rocky Mountain National Park, but 14th in Colorado. See, if you're making a facts video in a hurry, you could really mess that fact up and get all kinds of cranky comments. The highest mountain in the Rockies is Mount Elbert, and it's also in Colorado. And like Pikes Peak, it's not in one of the 4 national parks. Are you seeing how nuanced this is? You gotta pay attention. Here's the thing, Colorado has 58 mountain peaks exceeding 14,000 feet, known as 14ers. In Pikes Peak, it's 32nd in elevation, but it's the most visited mountain in the U.S. So I guess if you're Pikes Peak, you don't really care which mountain is the highest because you're making all the money. But one would assume Pikes Peak is the biggest or has some kind of recognition. But in reality, Pikes Peak is the most accessible, so it's the most popular. Seriously, on a warm summer day, you could drive up Pikes Peak Highway and head to the summit, have one of their famous donuts, which we didn't get to have, and come back down the mountain in a half day. The average elevation in Colorado is 6,800 feet, so let's say you're on the road heading to a wedding or something that's just a 20-minute drive. It's likely that you're going to be climbing because there are mountains in every direction. Altitude sickness occurs at about 8,000 feet. That's just 1,200 feet above the average. In Colorado, it's nothing to climb 1,200 feet to make a bread run. Everyone in our group experienced some kind of temporary health issues related to altitude. Everything from dizziness, shortness of breath, swelling, and even a little euphoria. But if you're there for a while, you get used to it. Within the boundaries of Rocky Mountain National Park, there are more than 100 peaks that rise above 11,000 feet in altitude, including Long's Peak at 14,259 feet. The Rocky Mountains is the second longest range in the world and the longest mountain range in North America. We made it to this point. The forest fires this past fall forced Park Services to close Trail Ridge Road. If you're from our neck of the woods around the Appalachian Mountains, Trail Ridge Road is kind of like the Blue Ridge Parkway of Rocky Mountain National Park. It's a must-see, must-do kind of road experience. At the time, I didn't realize what we were missing. It opened back up the week after we left. Imagine that. But let me tell you about what we missed. Trail Ridge Road covers 48 miles between Estes Park and Grand Lake. 11 miles of this highway is above the tree line, and the elevation climbs up to about 11,500 feet where the park's evergreen forests come to a halt. The highest point along this road is 12,183 feet. Goodness, I'm dying to get back here in the summer. So much to do and so much to see. But to be honest, when I'm in the Rockies, I'm not trying to find the biggest ball of twine, because the biggest ball of twine is in Texas. Come on, everyone knows that. But that's not my point. I'm lost in the heavens when I'm staring at these amazing, breathtaking mountains and thanking God that there are bigger things than my anxious thoughts. And I'm reminded of something the prophet Isaiah said. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above all the hills, and all nations will stream to it. Wow, can you imagine what that will look like? I just want to encourage you not to get too distracted by any temporary circumstances this Christmas season. This too shall pass. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. My name is Bill Marion, and this is A Nose for Life. Hey, if you have time, check out some of these other videos.